You're not special. And I know that hits your ego like a punch to the face because somewhere deep down, you've been telling yourself a different story. You've been telling yourself that you're different, that you've got potential, that one day things are just gonna click and suddenly your life will change. But let's cut the bullshit. Potential means nothing if you don't act on it. Nothing. There are millions of people out there who are just as talented as you, just as capable as you, maybe even smarter than you, and they're still stuck, still average, still going nowhere. You know why? Because they believe the same lie you've been believing, that being special is enough. It's not. The world doesn't care about your potential. It doesn't reward what you could be. It rewards what you actually do. And right now, if you're being honest, what you're doing isn't enough. Not even close. That's the uncomfortable truth you've been avoiding. You're not where you want to be. Not because you lack ability, but because your effort doesn't match your expectations. You want results without putting in the work. You want success without suffering. You want progress without discipline. And that's not how this works. Not in the real world. In the real world, nobody gives a fuck about your excuses. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is going to hand you success because you think you deserve it. You don't deserve shit. You earn it every single day through your actions. And if your actions are weak, inconsistent, and driven by how you feel, then your life is going to reflect that. That's why you're stuck. Not because you're unlucky, not because life is unfair, but because you've been moving like someone who thinks they're entitled to something they haven't worked for. And entitlement is poison. It makes you soft. It makes you lazy. It makes you believe that you're above the grind, above the struggle, above the boring, repetitive work that actually builds success. But you're not above it. You're in it, just like everyone else. The difference is, some people accept that reality and go all in, and others keep pretending they're special while doing the bare minimum. Guess which one wins? It's not complicated. The people who work harder, longer, and more consistently, those are the ones who rise. Not because they're gifted, but because they're relentless, because they don't rely on talent. They rely on discipline. And discipline doesn't give a shit how you feel. It doesn't care if you're tired, distracted, unmotivated, or having a bad day. It demands action anyway. And that's where most people fail, because they're too attached to their feelings. If they don't feel like working, they don't work. If they don't feel inspired, they don't move. And then they wonder why nothing changes. It's because your feelings are not reliable. They change constantly. One day you're motivated, the next day you're not. One day you're focused, the next day you're distracted. If your life depends on that, you're always going to be inconsistent. And inconsistency is the fastest way to stay average. That's where you've been living. In that cycle of starting and stopping, trying and quitting, pushing for a few days and then falling back into old habits. And every time that happens, you lose a little more confidence in yourself. You start to believe that maybe you're just not built for this. Maybe you're just not one of those people. That's bullshit. You're not failing because you're not special. You're failing because you're acting like you are. You're acting like you don't have to work as hard as everyone else. Like you can skip steps. Like you can wait for the right moment instead of creating it. And that mindset, it's killing your progress. Because while you're waiting, someone else is working. While you're overthinking, someone else is executing. While you're making excuses, someone else is getting results. And over time, that gap becomes massive. Not because they started better, but because they stayed consistent while you didn't. That's the difference. And it's a hard pill to swallow, because it means you're responsible for where you are right now. Not your circumstances, not your past, not other people. You, your habits, your decisions, your effort. That's what built your current life. And if you don't like it, then you need to build something different. But you don't do that by wishing, hoping, or waiting. You do it by working harder than you ever have before. Not sometimes. Not when you feel like it. Every single day. Even when it sucks. Especially when it sucks. Because that's where growth happens. That's where you separate yourself from everyone else who quits the moment things get uncomfortable. And let's be real, you've been that person. You've been the one who stops when it gets hard. Who takes breaks when things get boring. Who looks for an escape instead of pushing through. That's why you're here. That's why you're not where you want to be. And that's exactly what needs to change. You don't need to become more talented. You don't need some secret strategy. You need to become someone who does the work, consistently, relentlessly, without excuses. Because once you do that, everything changes. Your confidence builds, your results improve, your mindset shifts. Not overnight, but over time. And that's another thing you need to understand. This is not fast. This is not easy. This is not some quick transformation where you wake up one day and everything is different. It's slow. It's frustrating. It's repetitive. It's doing the same shit over and over again while feeling like nothing is happening. That's the reality of it. And if you can't handle that, you'll quit. Just like most people do. But if you can stay consistent through that phase, if you can keep showing up when it feels pointless, when it feels like you're not making progress, when it feels like it's not worth it, that's when things start to shift. That's when you start to build real discipline. That's when you start to become dangerous. Because now you're not relying on motivation anymore. You're relying on habits. And habits are powerful as hell. They run your life. They determine your actions without you even thinking about it. So if your habits are weak, your life will be weak. But if your habits are strong, if they're built on discipline, consistency, and effort, then your life will reflect that. That's how this works. It's not complicated. It's just hard. And most people don't want hard. They want easy. They want comfort. They want shortcuts. And that's why they stay average. But you're here because some part of you knows you're capable of more. Some part of you is tired of being stuck, tired of making excuses, tired of living below your potential. And that part of you, it needs to take control. It needs to stop listening to the weak voice in your head that tells you to take it easy, to wait, to delay, because that voice will keep you exactly where you are. And where you are right now is not where you want to be. So something has to change. Not your goals, not your dreams, your actions, your standards, your effort. You need to raise them drastically. Because if you keep operating at this level, nothing changes. You stay average, you stay stuck, you stay frustrated, and deep down, you know you don't want that. You know you're meant for more. But being meant for more doesn't mean shit if you don't work for it. That's the truth. And once you accept that, once you let go of the idea that you're special and realize that you have to earn everything, that's when you start to grow. That's when you start to push harder, stay consistent, and actually build something real. Because now you're not relying on some imaginary advantage. You're relying on effort. And effort is always in your control. That's your power. Not talent, not luck, effort. And if you use it correctly, if you commit to it fully, there is nothing that can stop you. But it starts with accepting one simple, brutal truth: you're not special. And that's exactly why you have to work harder than everyone else. Good, because now we go deeper into the part that most people will never accept. The part that separates those who actually change their lives from those who just keep watching videos like this and feeling temporarily fired up before going right back to their old habits. And it's this: you don't just need to work hard. You need to work harder than you think is fair, harder than feels reasonable, harder than your mind is comfortable with. Because the truth is, average effort gets average results. And right now, whether you like it or not, your results are a reflection of your effort, your discipline, your consistency. And if you're not where you want to be, then something in that equation is weak. And deep down, you already know what it is. You just don't want to admit it. Because admitting it means you can't hide behind excuses anymore. It means you can't blame your situation, your past, your lack of resources, your environment, or anyone else. It means you have to look at yourself and say, I'm not doing enough. And that shit is uncomfortable. It hits your ego. It challenges the story you've been telling yourself. But it's also the most important realization you can have. Because the moment you accept that you're the problem, you also become the solution. And that's where your power is. Not in pretending you're special, not in hoping things will change, but in understanding that if you want a different life, you have to become a different person. And becoming a different person requires doing things you're not used to doing, consistently, relentlessly, without negotiation. And that's where most people fail. Because they underestimate how hard that actually is. They think it's about a few good days, a burst of motivation, a short period of discipline, but it's not. It's about showing up every single day, especially on the days where you don't feel like it, especially when you're tired, distracted, frustrated, or bored. Those are the days that define you, not the easy ones, not the days where everything flows, but the ones where it feels like a fight just to start, because that's when your real character is exposed. That's when you find out if you're serious or just talking. And right now, if you look at your past honestly, you haven't been that consistent. You haven't been that disciplined. You've been operating in bursts. You go hard for a few days, maybe a week, and then you fall off. You lose focus, you make excuses, and you reset over and over again. And that cycle has been keeping you stuck, not because you lack ability, but because you lack consistency. And consistency is everything. It's what separates people who succeed from those who stay average. Because talent without consistency is useless. Potential without consistency is wasted. Motivation without consistency is temporary. But discipline with consistency, that's unstoppable. That's what builds real results. And that's what you need to develop. But here's the part that's gonna hit you. You don't develop consistency by feeling like it. You develop it by doing the work when you don't feel like it. That's it. That's the entire game, and it's simple, but it's not easy. Because your mind will fight you every step of the way. It will look for excuses. It will try to justify taking a break, delaying, or quitting. It will tell you you deserve rest. You'll do it later. It's not that serious. And if you listen to that voice, you lose every time. Because that voice is built on comfort. And comfort is the enemy of growth. Comfort keeps you safe, but it also keeps you stuck. It keeps you in the same place, doing the same things, getting the same results. And if you want something different, you have to go against that. You have to choose discomfort on purpose. You have to do the things that suck, the things that are boring, repetitive, and frustrating. And you have to do them consistently, not just when it's convenient, not just when you're in the mood, but every single day. Because that's how you build discipline. And discipline is what carries you when motivation is gone. Because motivation will leave. It always does. It's temporary, it's emotional, it comes and goes. But discipline stays. Discipline is stable, it's reliable. It's what allows you to keep going when everything in you wants to stop. And that's what you need to become. Someone who keeps going, no matter what. Someone who doesn't quit just because it's hard. Someone who doesn't back off just because it's uncomfortable. Someone who doesn't need to feel inspired to take action. And that's a different level. That's a level most people will never reach. Because they're not willing to suffer for it. They're not willing to push through the boredom, the frustration, the lack of results. They want quick progress, fast results, immediate rewards. And when they don't get that, they quit. They go back to what's easy, and that's why they stay average. But if you want more, if you actually want to break out of that, you have to accept that this is going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take consistency, and it's going to suck. There's no way around that. There's no shortcut, no hack, no easy path. Just work. Hard, consistent, daily work. And if you can't accept that, then nothing changes. You stay exactly where you are, with the same mindset, the same habits, the same results. But if you can accept it, if you can commit to it fully, if you can stop looking for easy and start embracing hard, then everything changes. Not instantly, but over time. And that's the part you need to understand. This is a long game. This is about building something real, something that lasts, something that actually changes your life, and that doesn't happen overnight. It happens through daily actions, repeated over and over again, until they become who you are. And once that happens, once you build that level of discipline, that level of consistency, you don't have to force yourself anymore. You don't have to rely on motivation. You just do the work, because it's part of you. It's your identity. And that's when you become dangerous. Because now you're not like everyone else. Now you're not average. Now you're someone who actually executes, who actually follows through, who actually does what they say they're going to do. And that alone puts you ahead of most people, because most people don't do that. Most people talk, plan, think, and then do nothing. But you, if you can reach that level, if you can become that person, then there is nothing stopping you. No competition, no obstacle, no excuse. Because you've built the one thing that matters most. The ability to keep going, no matter what. And that's what you need to focus on right now. Not being perfect, not being special, but being consistent, being disciplined, being relentless. Because that's what will change your life. Not your talent, not your ideas, not your intentions, but your actions. Repeated, daily, without fail. And if you can commit to that, if you can truly say, I'm going to do this no matter how I feel, then you're already ahead of who you used to be. And that's where it starts. Not with a big moment, not with a huge breakthrough, but with a simple decision to show up and do the work every single day, no matter what. This is the point where everything gets brutally simple, where all the noise, all the excuses, all the overthinking gets stripped away, and you're left with one undeniable truth. You either do the work or you don't. And whatever you choose, that's the life you're going to live. There's no hidden formula, no secret advantage, no moment where things magically become easier. It's just you, your decisions, and what you're willing to do when nobody is watching, when there's no reward, when it feels pointless, when it feels like you're putting in effort and getting nothing back. That's the real test. That's where your future is decided. Not in the moments where you feel motivated, not in the moments where everything is clear and exciting, but in the moments where it's hard as hell to even start, where your mind is filled with excuses, where your body feels tired, where everything in you is telling you to take the easy way out. That's where your life is being built or destroyed. And if you're honest, you've been choosing the easy way out more times than you want to admit. Not because you're incapable, not because you don't want more, but because you've been addicted to comfort. You've been choosing what feels good now over what actually moves you forward. And that's why you're stuck. That's why you're frustrated. That's why you feel like you're not living up to your potential. Because potential doesn't mean shit if it's not backed by action. It's just a nice idea that makes you feel better about doing nothing. And the world is full of people with potential who never became anything, who never built anything, who never changed anything, because they kept waiting for the right moment instead of creating it. Don't be one of them. Don't be the person who looks back years from now and realizes they had everything they needed to succeed but didn't use it. Because that regret, that's a different kind of pain. It's not the kind you feel in the moment and then move on from. It stays, it grows, it follows you. It shows up when you're alone, when things are quiet, when you realize you're not where you thought you'd be. It reminds you of every opportunity you wasted, every decision you avoided, every time you chose comfort over growth. That's the future you're heading toward if nothing changes. And the worst part is, you'll know exactly why. You'll know it was because you didn't push when you should have, because you didn't stay consistent, because you kept making excuses instead of making progress. That's the reality. And it's harsh, but it's also empowering, because it means you still have control. You still have the ability to change direction, to break the pattern, to become someone different. But only if you're willing to act. Only if you're willing to stop talking and start doing. Because at this point, you don't need more information. You don't need more videos. You don't need more inspiration. You know what to do. You've always known. Work harder. Stay consistent. Stop making excuses. Do the things you don't feel like doing. That's it. It's not complicated. It's just difficult. And most people avoid difficult. That's why they stay average. That's why they never reach their potential. But you're here because something in you refuses to accept that. Something in you is tired of being average, tired of being stuck, tired of living a life that doesn't match what you know you're capable of. And that part of you, it needs to take over, completely. No more half effort. No more I'll try. No more waiting for motivation. You either commit or you don't. Because half commitment is just another form of quitting. It keeps you in the game just enough to feel like you're trying, but not enough to actually win. And that's where you've been living, in that middle ground where nothing changes. That ends now. It has to. Because if it doesn't, you're gonna stay in the same cycle, repeating the same mistakes, living the same life, and eventually you're gonna run out of time to fix it. That's the part nobody talks about. Time is not unlimited. You don't have forever to figure this out. Every day you delay, every day you choose comfort, every day you don't act, you're losing something you can't get back. And one day, you're going to feel that loss deeply. So don't wait for that moment. Don't wait until it hurts enough to force you to change. Choose to change now. Choose to become the person who does what needs to be done no matter what. Because that's the only way out. There is no other path. You can't think your way into a better life. You can't wish your way into success. You can't hope your way into discipline. You build it through action, through repetition, through showing up every single day and doing the work, even when it sucks, especially when it sucks. That's the standard. That's what it takes. And once you accept that, once you stop looking for easier options and fully commit to that reality, everything shifts. Your mindset changes, your habits change, your results change, your life changes. Not instantly, but inevitably, because now you're doing what most people won't. And that's all it takes to separate yourself. You don't need to be special. You just need to be consistent. You just need to be disciplined. You just need to outwork the version of yourself that wants to stay comfortable. That's the real competition, not other people. You, your habits, your excuses, your limits. Beat that and you win. It's that simple and that hard. So now the question is, what are you going to do? Not later, not tomorrow, right now. Because this moment, this is where your life changes or stays exactly the same.